This is The Reckoning, 10 August 2026, show number 338, and 1 hour of unfiltered political truth starts now. There are certain phrases that always make me immediately go into what we call in the military the 16 molar suck. So you hear something and you go, yeah. One of those phrases is white privilege. Now, I've often said that the reckoning is a colorless space, and I mean it. But today, race will come into the discussion because the left has to keep bringing it up. Now, why do they do this? In my opinion, they bring it up because they have nothing else to blame their failure in life and their laziness in life on other than imaginary racism. All my life, I've heard that because I'm white and male, I have an advantage over everyone in society. Well, let's talk about that for a second. I joined the U.S. Air Force, any American could, and I fought for our country, any American could. While in the Air Force, I was actively discriminated against for promotion from company grade officer, field grade officer based off the color of my skin. How do I know this? Because I had friends on the promotion board that told me if you were black, you got a point. If you were female, you got a point. If you were black and female, you got 2 additional points. And it's a 10-point scale. That's a 20% weighted advantage over me. And I personally asked the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force when he came to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona, why he allowed a racist policy in our service. Now, for this question, I got to go see the wing commander, and those are never pleasant conversations. And I was told very politely, not, that a company grade officer should never ask the Chief of Staff of the Air Force a question like that. It was a rather harsh conversation. But I want to analyze white privilege from a different point of view, my point of view. 88% of America's fighter pilots are white. 61% of its frontline infantrymen are white. 78 to 82% of its special forces are white. Roxy's EOD service that she was in is 83% white. So is dying for your country or being the ones on the front line white privilege? Sure seems that way. Now, I've often thought that one of the devil's neatest tricks is to take something good and pervert it, to take things intended to inspire nobility and goodness and twist it into something malevolent and evil. So here I go, and I bet this one isn't going to be popular with those of you who believe colonization and patriarchy are evil. In 1898, the United States defeated the Spanish Empire and won the Philippines. In response to this, Rudyard Kipling wrote a poem discussing the white man's burden. Let me read a few stanzas. Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed, go bind your sons to exile to serve your captives' needs. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace, fill full the mouth of famine, and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, watch sloth and heathen folly bring all your hopes to naught. So the white man's burden, according to Kipling, was about stopping famine and disease, liberating and educating, in other words, civilizing, and most importantly, carrying out the Great Commission told in Matthew 28, 19 through 20, and taking the cross to all distant lands, as there is never any freedom in this world without obedience to the cross and its morality. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward, the blame of those you better, the hate of those ye guard. That phrase, all right, is, I meant to read that a little bit later, didn't delete it. But that phrase, I will come back to in a second. So what has the devil told us? The devil has told us we are colonizers, that we are evil, and that we watched Rhodesia become Namibia, become Shitholistan. We watched South Africa decline from civilization into racist hell where a white person cannot walk through a park without being mugged, where we see white people fleeing the country. And they want us to feel guilty by claiming we have white privilege. Let me read that again, the last couplet. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those you guard. For those of you who claim that America is racist, travel anywhere else in the world and you will learn that it's not. And to you I say, GFY, Golf Foxtrot Yankee, which can mean a couple of things, but for the purpose of mom, I'm just going to tell you it means God forgives you. For those that claim white privilege exists, golf, foxtrot, Yankee, which means God forgives you. And to those that think the rest of the world is better than America, golf, foxtrot, Yankee all day long, twice on Sunday. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is Latin, so get out your translators. Prodeo et patria, mors omnibus odio, habentibus patriam meam. You figure out what that means. Thus endeth the rant for the day. All right, let's talk about the WNBA. Rox, do you have the picture up there?
Posting now.
All right, perfect. Now, I have to be honest. I dialed out on the NBA, the men's NBA, when Jordan retired. And I was only a tourist as I cheered for Dirk Nowitzki in my hometown Dallas Mavericks in 2006, where we suffered the crushing agony of defeat, only to return in 2011 for the glorious win. Since then, the game has deteriorated to the point where, to me, it is unwatchable. When you measure the quality of the games I watched as a child, when the Celtics and the Lakers were going at it in the finals almost every year, when I watched the greatest athlete ever to play any game, in my opinion, win 6 championships in the 1990s, well, the modern game just isn't competitive. It doesn't compare to those athletes in those games. And that's the men. So why has the WNBA now crept into national consciousness? Why is somebody like me that doesn't like the NBA watching the W kind of? So a little bit about the WNBA. The league began in 1996 and it's lost money every year since inception. The exact amounts unknown, but Commissioner David Silver said in 2018 that the league had lost over $10 million annually because no one was watching. Then a rookie joined the league. The all-time leading scorer from college NCAA basketball, and revenue doubled from $100 million to $200 million. Attendance after Caitlin Clark joined the league was up 48%, ad revenue up 36%, and merchandise sales up 500%. An independent analysis by a finance professor, Ryan Brewer, estimated that Caitlin Clark drove 26.5% of overall economic activity, and that season tickets, merchandise, TV value, etc., with Fever games accounted for a large share of the broadcast value, 45% in one estimate. And ad impressions and revenue made that even higher. One midseason report put Fever games at roughly 1/3 of the TV leagues in ad revenue. So that sounds great. So what's the problem? All of that sounds like the league should be thriving, right? Bitterness and resentment from current WNBA players towards the rookie because of one issue that she absolutely cannot control, and that is the fact that she's white. For this, Clark has drawn a notably higher rate of flagrant fouls relative to her peers, higher volume and per minute rate than most players in multi-year tracking. Her rookie year, she led the league in receiving flagrant fouls. Now, a couple of ways of looking at that. All right, why is she being treated this way? All right, is it unusual? Okay, I believe it's racism from players in the league and jealousy over the acclaim she's receiving. Another way of looking at it, and this is what Shaquille O'Neal said, is that she's just a rookie going through similar treatment to what Jordan received from the Pistons with the Jordan rules. But I think it's different than that. And Sophie Cunningham came along and became Caitlin's enforcer. It ramped up the racism. And just in case there was any doubt as to which of the two it was, I want to point to 2 incidents this season which clearly show the blatant racism of the WNBA. On June 22nd, 2026, during the fourth quarter of the Indiana Fever's 86-77 win over the Phoenix Mercury, after a heated exchange between Clark and DeWanna Bonner, Cunningham pointed at Bonner for 22 seconds, a silent stare down, which went viral as a meme. Both players received technical fouls. So why did this moment go viral? And I've been thinking about this for a while. And my co-host, please disagree with me if you think I'm wrong. All right. I think Americans are by and large sick of what many perceive to be reverse racism in our society, and especially in the WNBA, as well as the sense of entitlement that we see in our society and definitely in the WNBA. And the point was mocking them. Now, there is a vast subculture growing online which is tired of the woke treatment of black issues, and the mocking is growing. Whether it's David Attenborough's parodies or mocking reparations to the didn't do nothing crowd, exhaustion with entitlement is growing. Now, does this exhaustion extend to real life? You bet it does. Look at the recent Carmelo Anthony trial. All the hijinks there that were basically ignored because we look at it now and say, that's just so stupid, I can't stand it anymore. That's the first Cunningham moment. The second Cunningham moment occurred this past weekend when DeJounte Carrington clotheslined Sophie Cunningham and when ejected for what is clearly a flagrant foul, tweeted white privilege. Did a flagrant foul. All right, let's look at it from her point of view, all right, or from the league's point of view. Carrington made contact with Cunningham's head or face from behind, and Roxy, please post this up in the nest, as Cunningham went for a fast break layup. After review, which there's to do, officials upgraded it to a flagrant 2 due to unnecessary and excessive conduct. In other words, there was wind-up, impact, and follow-through. This would result in any player's ejection, and it certainly resulted in Carrington's automatic ejection. And what did she do when she got to the locker room? She took out her cell phone and she tweeted white privilege. Now, I believe that the WNBA is in trouble because culture is turning against entitlement. And that league is full of entitled players like DeJounte Carrington, like Angel Reese. Added to that, they are driving out and acting to injure players that are bringing revenue to the league. Not content to just defend Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham has done something else that is far more dangerous to the left in the WNBA. In July, she had the audacity to say this: I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Now she's challenging two policies of the left. Now, this second fault line in the WNBA that it sits on is the whole premise of the question, what is a woman? My co-hosts and I are in violent agreement. XX chromosomes, period. And all the results of having that chromosome set. Now, as we pointed out with our opening question, for some, those on the left and idiots, this is a real quandary. Matt Walsh made a whole movie trying to get the left to answer the question. Now, I did not see that movie, but I don't think they ever solved it. A Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, couldn't answer the question. But now it's the NBA's turn to try. So, what does the WNBA's Collective Bargaining Agreement, Article 13, Section 1 state? It says only players who are women are eligible to play in the WNBA. But if you can't define what a woman is, well, it gets a little muddy real quick. There's no further clarification in the Collective Bargaining Agreement or any available separate policy that defines the term by biological sex, chromosomes, reproductive anatomy, hormone levels, self-identification, medical transition requirements, or any other criteria. No testosterone thresholds, estrogen requirements, or formal transgender eligibility rules are specified. Again, I go back to 2-year-old me. I don't have one of those, therefore that's a girl. I have one of those, therefore I'm a boy. It's not that hard. All right. Now, as of August 2026, the league has indicated that it is discussing the issue of transgender athlete participation via a task force of team executives. Oh my God, a task force. I wonder how much that meeting is going to cost for something that we've all known since we came out of the womb. And this is in response to public attention, which we'll get to in a second, but no updated definition or detailed policy has been issued yet. To date, they're claiming that no biological male has ever competed in the WNBA. I'm just going to say I'm not certain that's true, as Brittany Griner looks very male to me, but I'm told that she's female. Now, I've got to wonder, when she was in prison in Russia, why wouldn't they have put her in a male prison? Because I don't think they did if she was actually a male. I don't see the Russians playing these stupid games that we play here in the United States. Now, thankfully, this issue inside the WNBA is being brought to a head. And there are a couple of things that are forcing it that way. First, we've got Hunter Freedom and Royce White, both former NBA players who have now declared themselves publicly eligible for the 27 WNBA draft. They cited the league's CBA language, only players who are women are eligible, and argued that self-identification would qualify them, framing the announcement as a challenge to clarify eligibility rules amid ongoing debates about transgender athletes in women's sports. Now, one of the people that I listened to when I was a guest of the Biden regime was a man named Clay Travis. Clay Travis, it's what, Buck and Clay? I can't remember the other, but it's a good show. And he has also stated that he wants to buy a WNBA franchise, an expansion team he plans to call the Nashville Balls. He said the team would be 100% transgender biological males who identify as women with an all-trans coaching staff. And he said the slogan of this franchise would be "One Love, Two Balls," and it would be the most inclusive women's/men WNBA history. He also talked about the fact that it would be a dynasty given the differences in strength, height, etc. amongst men and women. Now, the Players Association for the WNBA had to come out with a statement. Did they defend their players? No. Did they embrace consent? No. They said, "We embrace justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Those are the values that unite this union and allow it to protect women's sports while creating transformational change. Hate, abuse, and demonization of any person or group of people, including transgender people, only fuel division and harm." Such drivel. It's just drivel. It's stupid. You are the WNBA Players Association. How about you defend the W in the WNBA? What a concept. Now, the league, not to be outdone by the Players Association, put something out, and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert said in a memo to all teams on August 8th, 2026, the league will approach the topic of transgender athlete participation thoughtfully, respectfully, and in alignment with the long-standing values of our league. Kill me now. All right, she noted that player eligibility rules are collectively bargained and that preserving the integrity of our game and ensuring fair competition will remain among the league's highest priorities. I am telling you right now, you let men in your sport, they're gonna dominate. Period. And it's not being sexist. We're just made differently. All right, she described the issue as complex and nuanced. No, it's not. XX, XY, binary. And said that teams and the Players Association would continue discussions. Now, the thing I love about this is it's forcing them to make a choice. This is not complex. It's not nuanced, despite their garbage. Okay, again, XX chromosomes, female. XY chromosomes, male. As far as race goes, and they are sitting on a racial fault line, because honestly, we are all sick of watching Caitlin Clark get destroyed by big black dyke lesbians every single night in the WNBA. How about you do this? Have one set of rules for every single player, regardless of their skin color. Now, what do I think the league is going to do about it? Honestly, they are so stupid as a league, all right? They will probably endorse this PC stupidity and let men play the game. That's my opinion. All right, so I'm going to come to my resident white supremacist who's not white on staff. Southern, what are your thoughts on these two issues? Could you please tell me, what do you think about this?
I mean, them allowing self-identification and the next going to be great. Like, let's have an ace out there. I want him on the team. Oh, I might actually watch it then. I have not watched it since the very first year it came out. I think it's ridiculous. They haven't always had the best players. It's usually just, I'd rather watch high school at this point. But as far as the race issue, I think they've always had race issues inside the WNBA. I mean, if you look back at it, it was predominantly black. We got the more popular players who just happened to be white because they were great in college, so it followed into their careers. They've always been racist against them, and I hate it. Like, I can't watch it. I don't know how any of you.
You know what's funny to me is the difference, and I'd like to hear Larry Bird say something on this topic, but he has been quiet. Now, if you search it, you'll run into things, but they're not. It's either AI generated or it's just delusion. But Larry Bird, when you're listening to other black players talk about like trash talker, one of the things he used to tell them, he would go to the opposing coach and say, "You're putting a white guy to guard me? You don't have any brothers?" So the black guys used to laugh at that, but they will all tell you he was an absolute assassin. And I think that's why Caitlin Clark has stayed quiet on this as well. All right. I think the woman is just an absolute assassin of a shooter. And I think she is going to eventually kind of get the same reputation as the Larry Bird in that she annihilate you on the court and win the game. I mean, if you listen to Magic Johnson and other players that Bird, they will tell you flat out, he told us what he was going to do and he did it. The guy was just lethal. So I think she will eventually earn the respect of the league where they'll stop doing this nonsense. But I'm not so certain. You know, I just don't know. I do people like DeJounte continue to hit her just because she's white that think that this is a black league. And what's funny is all the revenue that she's driven into the league. Do you know that they actually had revenue sharing for the first time in the WNBA's history? Why? Because of Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. That's why. All right. Rox, what are your thoughts on these two issues, the issue of race and the fault line of the trans? Do you want to see the Nashville Balls?
I wasn't expecting you to say Nashville Balls.
Right, I can't help it. It makes me laugh too. And the logo is even funnier.
Oh, I know. And it literally is like, I don't remember the guy's name. There's a guy literally, he's going to do it. He was like, according to y'all, and he's like actually like a man's basketball player, sorry. And he's like, I qualify for the WNBA, so I'm going to be joining this next season because I have all the qualifications I identify as.
I know.
Now. Yeah, I love it though. Also in the Communist Playbook, their thing is literally to rage bait you on every single thing that they can, and this is just one of those other topics. Unfortunately, a lot of people can be brainwashed. I mean, just look at the people who are by the mainstream, sit there and feed you a narrative, even when they know it's wrong. Because if you guys look at history and look at patterns, everybody knew something was wrong with Biden, but oh my God, he's perfect. And then someone makes millions writing a book about it, about how they knew the whole time. Again, these people are paid by the globalist agenda to push narratives down your throat. And we only have racism because they say it. There's no racism, literally pushing it down your throat to rage bait you. You were not a slave, because I think everybody at this point has not lived that long, or at least not the people fussing and whining about it. Just like I don't sit there and claim to have lived in the 1920s, because I didn't. It wasn't my life. Okay? There's people that start out poor no matter what race you have. So the whole argument is crazy to me. And again, I have seen it be played out because they are throwing it down your throat. Everybody gets along. If you look at kids, they get along. They all get along until they start getting fed a narrative, until things start happening. And I know there's different cultures and societies, depending on where you grew up, where you live, everything like that. And everything throughout a human's life plays into that. But the whole racist thing, and I deserve this and I deserve that. Well, what did you do to deserve it? You work hard. I was poor when I was young. We had to work to get where we were. It's not a privilege or not a privilege being taken away from you. There's so many different lives, and everybody of every race. It's not just black and white. There's so many races on this planet. So, like, again, it's just rage baiting you to get you to react. When you're emotional, that's when everybody loses their damn mind. And that is the whole game plan, though. It is literally the communist playbook. It's part of it. But that's what they do on the left, is rage bait you. Wake up, people. No
doubt about that. I mean, they do want to add the binary, all right, men and women, and the family So yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. All right, Dr. A, I have not come to you yet. You live in California. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I skipped the ultimate question. I'm being harassed in the back channel.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. So, what are your thoughts on the WNBA sitting online in this "What is a woman" fault line?
Well, first and foremost, women don't belong. Men don't belong in women's sports. Period. So, there's that part. But when it comes to the WNBA, over the fact that a white girl is actually more talented than a black girl, they need to either come to grips or get penalized. To stop doing what they're doing. And I'm sorry, she is more talented. Normally, it's the other way around. So I'm happy to say that. But guess what? She got you.
What is that? I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, and again, I say the WNBA will do. Sophie Cunningham's, I think, number 3 in the league in 3-point shooting percentage. Was she invited to the 3-point shot contest? The WNBA is refusing to embrace their cash cow. The NBA, on the other hand, David Stern embraced Michael Jordan completely. And what happened to the NBA during the time? It went from being a basketball association to honestly a global phenomenon. Think back to Michael Jordan and the Dream Team over in Spain, or pictures of Michael Jordan in Beijing. All right, again, that's what they could be doing. But because they won't embrace their star player on the basis of race, they're just not. That's my opinion. Again, guys, this is supposed to be an interactive show. So if you want to comment on these topics, please, grab a mic and we will definitely bring you up. I mean, that's always the intent. And that's why I have kept the space open, is because I want people to be able to come in and talk. And, Rox and I have always been committed to that start of the show eons ago. All right. We will move on to the next topic, but if you want to grab a mic and come up and talk about this one, this is, as they say, the meat of the mission for the day, was discussing the WNBA, and the fault lines it sits on, both racial and the what is a woman fault line. All right, the monster from Jekyll. All right, I don't know if you guys know this, but I have a well-known hatred of the Federal Reserve. I actually pretty much starting to hate almost every federal agency with the exception of the Department of War. All right, I do see a hand, so before I get started, we'll go ahead and come to Rusty Cannon. Go ahead, sir. Or ma'am. I don't have my glasses on.
I was about to say, oh my God.
So yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head on several different points. And I'll tell you that the latest, when you drew a correlation between race and this latest, what was the kid's Caramello? Yeah, the Caramello stabbing. Yeah, that was a pivotal point. I think Americans are starting to wake up and say, hey, a minute. I saw so many Black people. I was shocked. Them rooting on them, saying, there could be next, or, something, and to blame the lies going around, and that blames the boy that was dead. And it to see the way that it really woke me up, and it made me realize. And I think you're absolutely right. Stop and think about it. We would be, it would be, if it were majority white, be because we're racist, right? It just seems Black people have, and not all, I'm certainly not saying all, but it seems like we have cultivated a culture of victimhood in the Black community. And I'm sick of it myself. I'm not going to play into that crap anymore. I'm being white. I'm not going to feel bad. I don't want my kids or grandkids feeling that way either, And I think it's a real big issue. Just time more people stood up and said, this is no longer acceptable. And honestly, it never should have to begin with. Swinging the other way, the pendulum or whatever you call it, I guess, that happened where nobody's still alive that it happened to. I'm not saying that racism doesn't happen, but unfortunately we're seeing it happen all too often against white people. And it's, the way that the Black community, it's concerning. And again, not all, will not say all. It is more than I'm comfortable with. But yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. No, you're absolutely right. Now, I will say this. I mean, I do believe that it is a fringe percentage that think Carmelo is innocent. I mean, they've got him on video. They've got his audio. They've got the testifying to it, and they've got his teammates or people that were close by saying he did it, and those were black people saying it. So it reminds me of that Dave Chappelle skit from one of his shows where he said, we were supporting him because we knew the brother was guilty. And so I think that's 100% the case. I think a lot of black people knew Carmelo was guilty, and we're only seeing the clowns and the race baiters that still think he's not. Go ahead, Dr. A.
Sir, I just wanted to say I don't recall in utero receiving a checklist asking me what race I wanted to be born. So given that I was not given an option, it's kind of tough for somebody to hold it against me. And after all, we all bleed red. Let's judge each other on our character and our skills.
Didn't somebody say that? Somebody famous?
Somebody did, but he said it a little better.
Yeah, I think he did. Something about, judging by the character and not the skin. Who is that? I'm drawing a blank. Oh, wait. No, it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. All right. I'm going to briefly, I do encourage you, Rusty, to stick around. You're going to like topic 3. All right. The monster from Jekyll Island. I just want to talk about the Fed very briefly. All right. And again, for those of you that listen to the show, I can't stand it. I pretty much despise every federal law I just said. The Federal Reserve's legal mandate is clear. It must focus on stable prices and maximum employment. That's why we have it. All right. It's supposed to be kind of a nonpartisan control mechanism to make sure our politicians completely wacky. Well, in the past 5 years, it's failed on both. Okay, inflation remains materially above the 2% rate, reaching a decade high. Cumulative inflation in the 2021 through 2025 period. The failure was not merely a matter of missing a forecast or many forecasts, but a policy framework that became narrative-driven rather than data-dependent, meaning political rather than rational. Now, the Fed spent much of 2025 moving between concerns about inflation from tariffs based on ideology and a growing admission of weakness in the labor market, but it continued to treat interest rates as its overwhelmingly dominant instrument. Now, that's poor policy mix when the problem of persistent inflation is caused by what? What is the primary driver of persistent inflation? Excessive government spending. Rox, I'm going to ask you a question because, I could be confused on this. But which party controls the...
I thought the Republican Party...
They do, all right. What about Senate and the House? Are they controlled Democrats or Republicans?
They're controlled by the lobbyists or whoever lines their pockets.
All right, fine, I get that. But sitting in the seats, are the majority of senators and representatives Republicans or Democrats?
They're Republicans.
They are. Now, isn't one of the Republican Party to restrict government spending? Agree. I say that tongue in cheek too. And again, I will do everything I can to elect Republicans. Why? Because the other Tala freak show is so insane we cannot have them in office. But there is not a single politician out there that wants to see spending cuts other than Rand Paul or Massey. They all just go along and spin like drunken sailors. So if I have a tool in my job and it's not working, I get rid of it. The Fed is not working. The Fed defines price stability as inflation running at 2%. They're failing. That goal was unmet. Right now, it's 2.9% year over year in December with core PCE inflation over 3%, which means it's going to go up some more. Both headline and core inflation increased 0.4% last month alone, but enough with the statistics, all right? The point of bringing this Sominex up, and usually we have a history of looking at economics and watching the audience drop off, is that the Fed was theoretically founded to be apolitical and help keep the economy stable. But they don't do that. And since they don't do it, we don't need them. Unfortunately, though, there are 3 things that are eternal: death, taxes, and a federal program. You're saying, well, what a Department of Education? President Trump campaigned on ending it. He actually signed an executive order telling the Secretary of Education to close it down. Well, guess which department doesn't have a shutdown date yet? Our government is completely out of control. and when any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, ... All right, I want to move to Section 3. I think most of a violent agreement on the Fed. It's useless to preserve property and for the rich. It does nothing to help the people. It is a tool to help the Democrats stay in office, and we watched them and their destructive policies last election cycle to try and help Kamala Harris. All right, now this image is why I am telling you I will work, I will strive, I will bleed if necessary to see Republicans elected. What we have here is a perfect picture of the modern left in this country. We are seeing a complete and total merge of the Democratic Party, the Islamists, and the communists. Their spokesman said, and let me quote, "We are here to destroy the white race." Marxist streamer Hassan Piker has emerged as an increasingly visible, if unofficial, spokesman for the Democrat Socialists of America, which are consuming the Democratic Party and their rapidly expanding political action network. Has he been successful? Well, let's look at the facts. Again, fight on the battlefield you're on, not on the one you wish to be on. He campaigned for Michigan Democratic Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed. Did he win, Dr. A?
No, sir.
No. Abdul El-Sayed did win the primary, correct?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the other one.
No.
I don't know. I don't know that race.
He did.
He won the primary.
All right. And candidate, she win. Yes.
Did she? Oh, I thought that was still up in the air. Oh my God! Oh my God!
I thought she did. All right. Well, somebody check for me, Rox.
Oh my God!
All right. And we all know that he has very close ties with socialist New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani, and we all know he won. Now, from an electoral risk perspective, Piker is becoming a liability for Democrats, and they're seeing that. His far-left anti-American rhetoric is providing Republicans with what the Democrats call a gift and what we on the right call raw red meat for the base. Even Hillary Clinton warned on Friday that the GOP's anti-communist messaging is very effective. Yeah, because communism kills people, impoverishes people, puts people in gulags. Basically, it's what Biden was like. All right. So Piker, what has he really said? He has called on his followers to actually kill capitalists. And I quote, "Yeah, kill them. Kill those MFers and murder those MFers in the streets. Let the streets soak in their effing red blood, dude." Wow. Not to be outdone by that, he also said, thanks, Rox, I'll get to that in a second, "We want more immigrants to come into your countries, and then they're going to F your sisters and then your daughters. We're here to destroy the white race, biatch." Another quote from Mr. Hassan Piker. "America deserved 9/11. I do not support the United States of America." Wow. And as a side note, Hong hasn't won yet because the vote doesn't happen until tomorrow. So we'll see. All right. Piker's close proximity to DSA-aligned candidates, combined with his anti-American rhetoric and Marxism, hostile to America's political and capitalist system, has actually triggered federal investigators to examine the possibility that revolutionary activity is being supported by foreign subversion networks. We've been saying that forever, and we were told it was a conspiracy. Remember? It's yet one of the other conspiracies that we were right about. We know the Chinese are supporting these clowns. And what is our FBI doing about it? Twiddling their little thumbs because they support the Democrat Party. Now, to be fair, his rhetoric is so insane that even a few lefty places are starting to cancel him. The University of Washington recently canceled a scheduled Piker event. All right. It is, of course, a taxpayer-funded institution. It offers coursework on Marxism, feminism, and other far-left frameworks, and it places an emphasis on limiting capitalism. But they canceled this guy. All right. So the thing that's bothering me all right, is I don't understand why it's okay for him to state these things when if we just reverse the races, it would be considered hate speech and he would be in prison. So I want to go back up, all right, and I'm going to say this in a Kermit the Frog voice so that my opponent can't cut it out and use it against me, all right? We want more immigrants to come into your countries, and then they're going to F your sisters and then your daughters. We're here to destroy the black race, biatch. All right, again, if you put it in the other way, all right, it is, quote, hate speech. Now, I'm going to tell you this, all right? This is not going to be a popular opinion at all. I love the First Amendment, and he should be free to say these things. He should. But I hope you understand how hard it is for me to observe the double standard when I was actually put in prison and called reprehensible by a federal judge for having a private conversation about a hypothetical overthrow of the U.S. government. All right. Justice has to be blind to this. It has to either permit all speech or none. I don't get it. Justice is not blind, though, in this country when it comes to conservative speech. It's classified as speech. So if he's allowed to say such things, why wouldn't somebody on the other side of the spectrum be allowed to say it? And I think they should. The solution is not to limit speech, but more speech. Why? Because this guy running his mouth is good for the Republican Party and for the United States of America. Because when we see the insanity he is spewing, all right, it drives people into our camp. All right, go ahead, researcher. I'll come to you and then rifle down the co-host panel.
All right. Thank you so much, Colonel. Pleasure to be with you. So real quick on Hassan Piker. This influencer needs to be stopped. But, you know, you mentioned something about the First Amendment there. Does it really apply to speech where persons are inciting violence? Who don't know? Hassan Piker has a pretty large leftist, right? And I'm pretty sure he's being propped up by some dark forces to push this agenda. So, you know, I think it's having a opposite effect, as you mentioned, Larry, because, you know, people are seeing the radical craziness that's this guy's mouth, and they're just like not for it. It may cause people to wake up too, but I definitely think that an extreme should be stopped. And really, an expert in your constitutional laws as it relates to the First Amendment, but I mean, there should be some line. There should be a line that's drawn when, you know, your speech is leading to people's lives are being put in danger. They're being put in because of violent rhetoric, right? And because you think it's something that shouldn't be ignored. But thanks for bringing it up. I'm going to drop the mic there.
All right. So great point. All right. And before I go to my co-host, you know, I want to say this. And again, I'll be honest with you. I looked it up while you were talking because I was right on this. All right. There's a Supreme Court case, I think it's Brandenburg versus Ohio in 1969, that states that any speech advocating violence or illegal action is unprotected, meaning they could prosecute him, only if it is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action. So stating kill them all is apparently okay, but kill them all at 7 p.m. today on the corner of 5th and Broadway is not. And is the speech likely to actually produce such action? Now, that is a very broad protection in terms of incitement, all right? The other thing to consider is it a true threat? Speech that communicates a serious expression of intent to commit unlawful violence against a specific person or group not protected. That's Virginia versus Black and Counterman versus Colorado. Now, again, I'd have to dig into that for specifics, but, you know, you can say our entire judiciary ought to be put in, what do they call those things, you know, those they hang people outside of, you know, in medieval times on castle walls. You can say something like that, but you say, well, this specific judge ought to be killing. So again, it's you can't say things like that. So it is a fine line. You're right to bring up, you know, the incitement clause. Gotta, you know, I wish I knew what the checklist was, you know, because immediate and specific seems to be, and then go from there. But Dr. A, into you, Sean.
I just wanted to ask what the date was of that Supreme Court ruling, because if I'm not mistaken, until the last decade, we really haven't had the amount of reach on social media for even crazy people to reach out to even crazier audiences to spur them up. It used to be somebody standing in front of a crowd, or somebody getting on a megaphone, or somebody sending out a mass email, right? It wasn't this quick movement. Like, for instance, the discords that are triggering the young people to take violent action. It's not a one-time event. They are manipulating these young people into action.
You're absolutely right. What is the project for that called? It's not Mockingbird, but there was a specific plan or government funded socially engineer people into violence. And there are a lot of theories going on that there are weapons that force you to move. And when I say weapons, I'm going to talk about things like microwaves that make your body move in a direction. And there are people that think those things were used. The Special Forces guy has said that they were used on January the 6th. I don't know. I didn't feel anything, but I'm just telling you that. Dr. A, the case I cited, Brandenburg versus Ohio, is 1969. And I think you're very right about the fact that we are absolutely due for revisit on speech and its limitations. But again, I fall on a very, very broad spectrum. Having spent time in jail for my First Amendment rights, my right to assemble, my right of free speech, I'm going to side, very, very broadly. And this is a pretty good rule right now. All right, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think some of that Brandenburg is if the person speaking public it hasn't shown any planning, any sort of actual directive, and just generally speaking, then you cannot, then Brandenburg comes into place. An example would be Michael Brown's, I can't remember if it was a stepfather or his father. After Michael Brown's death, he got up in front of everybody, to burn it all down. Well, what happened? Ferguson burnt down to the ground, but he couldn't be brought in charges. There were a lot to that. However, you had a U.S. President Obama, who actually drone strike and killed 2 U.S. citizens, the father being and his son, his 16-year-old son, for, I would say, what they decided as verbal threats, or him being, labeled. Nobody got to see really what they were going to convict him on. So, you have, based on who the president is, actually President Obama went off of a white paper that the DOJ at the time, now I forget his name.
Probably Eric.
Actually,
was his name Eric? I know who you're talking about. He was the Attorney General. Eric Holder, yeah.
Yeah, and he wrote a 16-page white paper. They were talking about how, the executive branch has this kind of authority to assassinate citizens or whoever without, if the means was, I forget the wording, that basically, if it was too to actually go get them. We're saying it's okay to assassinate them because Anwar al-Awlaki was in an area that was controlled by the Houthis. And this is really that drone strike, actually the Houthi attacks on Yemen again, because they knew that Yemen, the government of Yemen at the time, was kind of, for the United States. So that's just a little bit of history. Thanks, though.
Yes, sir. And I was actually in Saudi Arabia at the time, and the Saudis got very active in Yemen after that. My work that I did for the U.S. government over there was getting battle damage assessments on the effectiveness of the Saudi Air Force, as well as details on their reconnaissance pods that they had got from the French and some other things. Rox just corrected me. It wasn't Mockingbird. It was MK Ultra. All right. So again, our government's been working on how to influence people, things for a long time, and I think they know what they're doing. But Rox, Hassan Piker, what are your thoughts on this clown?
Okay, this terrorist in white people clothing that he likes to. I'm gonna make. No, you're not. Hassan Ahmed Piker, whatever you want to call him, is a straight up terrorist. I'm sorry. He is influenced. He is probably being paid with regimes himself, as a lot of them are. Let's be honest. If you look at them, they always throw this out. Even that little guy that just won the primary, whatever his name is, that he campaigned with, was like, this anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Do you notice he only threw in the anti-Semitism after he won, and now they have to, we're off again, right? Look at how they move. It was all Islamophobia until that happened. Now he's got to have the Jewish community on his side because that's going to be very expensive for him. He needs that APAC money just like they all do. So just put that in the thing. And I'm so tired of everybody throwing a phobia around there. I'm going to call these people who want to destroy America Ameriphobic or whatever. Somebody come up with a word for me. Yep. Because this is crazy. I'm going to be like, you're Ameriphobic. You want to destroy this country? Get the hell out.
Agree.
I'm so tired of it. Go live in your little suppressive community. Stop trying to destroy our freedom. If you don't like it here, go away.
That's exactly what I said in the rant, and I meant it. I am right there with you. I absolutely despise the Islamophobia as well. I love Muslims. They are such great targets. All right. I loved having them under my pepper in my bomb reticle in Afghanistan. I mean, I loved it. Thank God they were there. That way I could kill them. Rah! I told you I was belt fed today.
I know.
I mean, seriously, this is ridiculous. All right. I am not phobic of them at all. I am disgusted by them, and their pedophile prophet be upon him. All right. All right. Southern, what are your thoughts on the speech? Should he be limited in some way? Do you think the Supreme Court right in Ohio versus Brandenburg? And if you were to change it, what would you change?
So I think he should be allowed to say whatever he wants to say. I'd like to know what my enemy is saying so that I know what they're up to. If a crime is ever committed and they say, Hassan Piker made me do it because of X, Y, and Z, then he should be charged.
Agree. Now, again, like I said, I think the Ohio thing was pretty good. One, you have to have the means to do it, which is what Sean brought up. All right. And two, you need to have a specific intent. Sean, I'll give you the last statement, about 30 seconds. Then we got one more segment to get to. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I would just say you have to be careful with kind of what Southern just said, because there were many people who were lawyers who said, yes, what President Trump said is what went into the Capitol. So whatever it doesn't matter what they say. It is the intent and the pursuit of the person who doesn't matter what the person who because they're easily turned. An attorney is going to do their best to defend them, and they're going to put blame on who the speaker was. So I think Brandenburg helps against somebody saying false things and somebody else for their actions.
Absolutely. All right, go ahead, Southern.
Wait, can I counter? So actually, you're incorrect. So if somebody goes to, say, Sacramento and say, kill all the capitalists, and somebody in Sacramento goes and kills all the capitalists, guess what you can be charged with? You can be charged exactly for saying that because you're the ones that helped to bed that rhetoric. So saying that you is absolutely incorrect. You can be charged with it. You do have to be careful what you say. We have had many, many cases in the past where people have been charged exactly with that, and they have all been terrorist charged.
All right. Guys, Southern, you have space tonight. Sean, you two want to continue this conversation?
I do not.
Oh, you do not? Okay. Well, I was going to say go to Southern Space.
Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
All right. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So go there tomorrow.
Tuesday.
All right. I want to talk last, and I'll make it fairly quick, an undefeated economic principle. All right. From 2014 through 2023, nearly all aspects of Western culture became woke. This was because there was pretty much an invasion of a highly coordinated horde of far-left activists. The subversive coup in entertainment launched the entire woke era. I would say woke error. I actually think I got that right by accident. All right, as well as DEI. Now, the movement was incredibly well supported with billions in funding from the very corporations they were going to attack through what was called ESG, environmental, social, and governance, lending, and government subsidies. Again, government hurting the very people it's supposed to protect and spending our money doing it. Politicians protected them from legal consequences and helped to censor their opponents. Mainstream journalists lavished praise and ran propaganda to tear down the critics, those of us that were saying woke is dumb. All right, the battle for the woke takeover, or against it, was bubbling under the surface for many years as a rebellion waged by small but scrappy alternative media. Those of us on Facebook, those of us on X that were getting just clobbered, all right? However, at the time, the public was largely unaware of the PSYOP, MK Ultra, and Mockingbird that was targeting them. There was nowhere near enough popular momentum to stop this coup of the leftists with their crazy agenda. All they had to do was to deny that any agenda existed. It was all in people's heads. It was a conspiracy theory, like everything else we've been right on. Now, there was a game development studio that stood at the forefront of the woke mob. All right. They worked for Microsoft. That was called Bethesda Softworks. All right. They created the legendary video game Fallout. All right. And then they went from basically being a company that made a ton of money off of their straight male audience, and they sought to teach the chuds a lesson by destroying everything they held dear. Now, Bethesda, while destroying this, was engaging in political support for BLM, LGBT pride, etc., all the usual grifts. All right, the virtue signaling they had was off the charts. They created a game called Starfield, which was an open world sci-fi game which focused more on DEI and pronouns than on creative storytelling. The game was meant to be Bethesda's crowning achievement, but it failed due to gamer boycotts. Gee, imagine that. Your audience is white and male and doesn't use pronouns, and you're trying to tell them they're all wrong. Starfield, which cost around $400 million to produce, all right, was met with mediocre reception, and after a few months, player numbers crashed by 90%. Evidence suggests that the game never made a profit. I sure would like to see what it actually failed. The ongoing failures of Bethesda contributed to wide cuts by Microsoft and Xbox, and that particular studio, Bethesda, was hit hard. Now, Bethesda fired 30 to 40% of its employees, with a large number of developers being kicked to the curb, and these employees look exactly like you might expect. A gaggle of socialist circus freaks, all right? This is reminder number 432. If you want to lose money, go woke. There is a saying now for this. Go woke, go broke. How many companies need to Bud Light themselves? Now, why do I spend time on this? All right, what does one software company matter? It doesn't. What does one movie matter? It doesn't really. But politics is downstream from culture. Win the culture war, win the West. It's that simple. Video games right now are huge drivers. They are a big slice of the media industry. And this is where younger generations are congregating and forming their collective views. Those views will be shaped by things which are profitable. I submit that patriotism and conservatism to an American audience are extremely profitable. As evidence, I give you Young George Washington. It had a reported production budget of $20 million, and as of early August 2026, it's earned roughly $46.8 to $48.6 million domestically at the box office. Double your money with patriotism and conservatism, or go woke and go broke. It's really that simple. Because in this culture, the American culture, the customer is always right. And the American culture is a patriot, and he or she is exhausted with the preachy woke culture, which is what Sophie Cunningham and the WNBA are still trying to foist on us. Again, I told you it all looped together. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the show up with a couple of quotes from one of my favorite presidents. A Republican, yet he established the national park system. A Republican, yet he busted the trusts. A Republican, and yet child labor laws were passed during his term. The man was a colossus, And I'm talking about Theodore Rex, which is the name of the book about Theodore Roosevelt that I recommend you read. Theodore Roosevelt said, "Here is your country. Cherish these natural wonders. Cherish the natural resources. Cherish the history and romance as a sacred heritage for your children and your children's children. Do not let selfish men or greedy interests skin your country of its beauty, its riches, or its romance." Spot on, or as we would say in the Air Force, shack lead, which means a direct hit by the bomb, by Theodore Roosevelt. The last thing Theodore Roosevelt said, patriotism means to stand by the country. It doesn't mean to stand by the president or any public official, save exactly to the degree in which he himself stands by the country. It is patriotic to support him insofar as he efficiently serves the country. It is unpatriotic not to oppose him to the exact extent that by inefficiency or otherwise he fails in his duty to stand by the country. In either event, it is unpatriotic not to tell the truth, whether about the president or anyone else. I start the show by saying 1 hour of unfiltered political truth starts now. I swear I will always tell the truth. And I've seen a recent accusation that 90% of the people that host spaces are paid by other people. I'm not paid a dime, and neither is Rox, Dr. A, or Southern to be in this space. We are here for you and to tell you the truth, and we will express our views, which by and large are pro Deo et Patria, for God and country. That's it for the week. I want you guys to have a great week. Spend time with your family. For those of you that have little ones going back to school, that's great news. Southern, I'm looking forward to my T-ball updates resuming as the kid begins his MLB career. So this is going to be outstanding. All right. God bless each and every one of you, and I am out.